What's up, gangsters? Sort of start with a new line. It's one way fight.
Hey.
It's me, Neill Smith, Alaska King. Yeah, Jesus Christ, this is post UFC 262. And, well, we were right about the main card anyway. Oliveira,
Yeah.
you want to take it on this one, mate?
Mate, what a comeback for Charles Oliveira. Like, I think it symbolises his kind of run in the UFC as well, doesn't it? With all the highs and all the lows. So, like, when I watched it, in that first round, mate, when he got dropped against Chandler, like, I was gutted because I generally thought the fight was over. Like, I generally did. I thought, this is it. Like, it's going to get stopped. Then he managed to get his back, didn't he, and everything like that. But then obviously he managed to get out of it and everything like that. And then just before the second round, when he was in the corner, like, you're seeing kind of Charles Oliveira look at the crowd and everything, take a deep breath, and it was almost kind of that he was saying, "I'm okay, like I'm okay, yeah." And I feel like he generally had even more confidence. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's like I feel like he was kind of, I took his best shots. I'm still here. I'm comfortable now. I've got I'm kind of got my head right and everything. And then we see what happened. He goes in there, and in the first exchange, he drops him, and then finishes him. So, like, what a performance by him. Obviously, if you're Chandler, you're absolutely gutted, aren't you? Because you literally be saying, I was so close. Do you know what I mean? If that fight would have got stopped, because when there was a time when Charles Oliveira was kind of, he was crouched over, wasn't he?
Mm.
And I thought the referee was going to step in. Obviously, he didn't. But if you're Chandler, you're thinking, fuck, I'm so close. But yeah, what a performance by Oliveira. What did you think?
I thought we learned a lot, mate. I mean, one of the main things that people were saying was, early on in his career, he had the tendency to maybe quit. I think we found out that there's no quitting him anymore.
Yeah.
He stood that. We found out that he's got a chin. We always knew about his ground game, and, he took his back and that. And it was confirmation that not only he had power in his hands, but he had power in his hands with some of the more upper echelon. And I just felt like, it was a nice highlight reel finish for him to do that in the actual championship fight for him. He's got all these subs they'll show on the highlight reels, and now he's starting to put together KOs. He's turning into a complete fighter, mate. And where we were sort of saying the other week and that he would have been someone to have maybe challenged Khabib, maybe that seemed far-fetched in fantasy land before. And still maybe because Khabib's just such a machine, but I feel like it's getting more and more towards that. Who would you say now? I mean, obviously it's going to be between Poirier and McGregor. Who's going to win the chance for that? Gaethje's only really off the loss to Khabib. Who would you say, dependent on the winner of McGregor Poirier?
Yeah,
just an automatic. They're going to get it.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. To be honest, I just do. I think I think to me it just makes sense, especially Dustin Poirier. If he beats McGregor, yeah, he's clearly the next guy. And if McGregor wins, I mean, if you're Charles Oliveira and you're the UFC, you're not going to say no to McGregor, are you? It's just the money aspect. And then with Justin Gaethje, I feel like Justin Gaethje, if I'm honest, I don't really know what's happening with him, to be honest. I don't know why he's not got a fight lined up. I don't really know kind of the situation with him. But I've seen online people are saying Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje, and I think that's a brilliant shout. I'll probably go with that, to be honest. I think that makes the most sense. I feel Gaethje needs to get a win to get the momentum back, and then if he wins if it is Michael Chandler and he wins that fight, then yeah, absolutely, he's next after the winner of McGregor and Poirier, because that, you are right, like, that is the next one to make.
I feel that Justin Gaethje v Chandler is the ideal fight for Gaethje. Bad choice for Chandler. I think he wasn't exposed in any way, but Oliveira, I think, sort of showed that if you manage the distance with Chandler, he's always had this tendency to rush you, close that distance, and put the pressure on, hit you with the big bombs or take you with the wrestling. I feel like Justin Gaethje, I mean, in recent fights, specifically the Tony Ferguson fight, he showed that he's not that lunatic who'll just stand and bang anymore. He controls the distance now. And if he keeps that tempo that he did display in the Tony Ferguson fight, I think he does Mike Chandler all day. And that's not saying that Mike Chandler's tarnished by the fact that he's lost. I still think he's a top-level competitor in that top 5. I just feel like Justin Gaethje's got so many more bombs.
Yeah.
However, saying that, it was what Khabib did to Gaethje, one of the quickest finishes for Khabib. He rushed Gaethje. I just think Khabib's a different animal to Chandler, though.
Yeah, I feel like since Gaethje's been training with that Trevor Whitman, he's just a different fighter, isn't he? Like, he's just so composed. I think the fight against Michael Chandler, though, I don't see that going the distance. I do feel like with that one, it's just kind of like a pick 'em fight. Like, I think even odds wise as well, it'd be dead even. Me, I don't think you'd have a favour going into that fight. I feel like they're both just quite similar. I think. So I think with that one, it'll be. I think you make it a 5-rounder as well, in my opinion. Like, you give that a main event. Could be on like a Fox card or something, but you have that on a main card, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like if Chandler wins that, though, it's first round. I feel like as soon as Gaethje lands a couple of them kicks, that style of his to go forward's just going to go, that's it, it's done.
Yeah.
I feel like he'll kick his leg off and then, trade with him standing still. And Gaethje's got one hell of a chin. I mean, do you remember the Eddie Alvarez fight where he was like KO'd 15 times in like a round and then was still fighting until he was finally out? And Alvarez has got hands. Yeah.
But that's the thing, Michael. I mean, even in this fight, I mean, Mike Chandler showed he's got power, mate. Like, in that fight, I just see it as that pick 'em fight. I see it as one where they just stand in the tire and they just throw. I think it'll be one of them fights. They just stay right in each other's faces and just first one down. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be that fight has to be lined up. And then I agree with you. I think McGregor and Poirier, whoever wins that is next for Oliveira. But with Oliveira, by the way, like, say if because I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, if McGregor wins and he fights Charles Oliveira, I favour Charles Oliveira in that fight. Like, I think that's a tough fight for McGregor. Dustin Poirier, I don't know. I think that favours Dustin Poirier. I think he'll be my favourite if that fight happens. I don't know.
I think Oliveira beats both of them, and I feel like Poirier is going to beat McGregor. I mean, I don't discount McGregor. He's always got that, one-punch power, and he's got a number of different moves standing up. And it's nothing to do with this calf kick business. You'd said it in another video, I doubt his mindset at the minute.
Yeah.
If it was the McGregor we saw coming out of featherweight into the lightweight category, then I wouldn't be thinking the same necessarily. It's just, I don't feel like his head is on that same motivational path. Too many of his tweets or posts and stuff. He's got that whole thing about money, and I just don't see it. He's a father now, and that takes a bit of your
5 kids. 5.
Yeah, in about 5 years. But I just feel like it's all been too much for someone to keep that fight game. You've seen it with the likes of Mike Tyson and stuff like that. They were absolute killers. Give them that money and put them in the wrong circle. It goes south.
So I think that's a good point, to be fair, because I remember when McGregor was fighting Jose Aldo and the build up to that, and you'd hear McGregor say, well, Jose Aldo's a family man now and everything like that. You can't have that mindset in this fight game. It was all kind of like, you've got to be all about this and everything like that. And obviously now McGregor's kind of the family man now. Like the narrative has kind of changed. In regards to that fight, I'll be honest. Yeah, I think my mindset going into this one is Poirier. I feel like, yeah, I do feel like he is the favourite with this one, and I think, but I would not even the mindset of McGregor in the fact of all the money and everything like that. I think there's just a little thing in McGregor's head that's kind of like, I think he knows Dustin Poirier has his number. I generally feel like McGregor, I don't know if he believes in himself. I don't know if he believes that he can actually do it against Dustin Poirier. I know that's obviously a big claim to make, but just his attitude kind of with the fights and everything, I see like a bit of doubt, if I'm honest. So I do feel like Dustin Poirier does it again. Don't know how he does it. Can you imagine if Dustin Poirier goes out there and finishes him again? I think if he does that, if you're McGregor, like, what do you do next? Do you know what I mean? You get finished back to back. What do you do?
It's a hard thing for a fighter to deal with or to even recognise. If you've got that doubt there, you have a certain amount of doubt in every single fight because you've always got to have that nervousness going into a fight. And it can be easy to just put it down to, no, this is just pre-fight nerves. But there's got to come a point where it's addressed with the people around them, I feel. I feel like Kavanagh or someone needs to just are you 100% in this or whatnot?
Yeah.
This isn't necessarily pre-fight nerves. You need to be there, focused. He's just had a kid, hasn't he? Again, in the last few days. And that's a big thing to have in a fight camp when he's, 3 weeks out?
Yeah, it's June, isn't it? That fight's in June now.
June, so 2 weeks out because we're on the 18th. The 18th of May now, 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think actually it could be in July. It could be in July, that one. But June or July. Yeah, June or July.
It's coming up soon. To have a newborn is a big thing. And even if you've got a family set up there to, do the majority of the hard work, that's a huge amount of emotion. I mean, I've had two, and I can remember the day like it was crystal clear because just the amount of emotions running through your body. And you're doing that when you've been mentally preparing to fight someone who's the #1 ranked lightweight in the world. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. But it is what it is. Do you want to move on to I picked Tony. You picked Dariush.
Yeah, it was one of them fights where I wanted to be wrong, to be honest. Like, just from the walk-in, I was like, I was hoping for Tony Ferguson to turn back the clock, but yeah, it happened the one way that I thought it was going to go. So on the last podcast that I was on, I said, didn't I? I was like, the game plan for Beneil Dariush should be, don't get crazy. Just stick to what you're good at, the basics. You know what I mean? Like, he mixes it up well, he wrestles and everything like that. And he did exactly that. I didn't fall into any kind of unnecessary engagements or anything like that. He just stayed to his game plan and out-grappled him. And I think if you're Tony Ferguson, I mean, the guy tried to win, you know what I mean? Like, he was trying. I think it just comes down to he just wasn't good enough. He just didn't have the skills to beat Beneil Dariush. There is no excuses for it. There's no, no injuries. There's no nothing like that. It was just Beneil Dariush was the better guy, and that's it. So I think, I mean, even from that fight as well, Tony Ferguson didn't take too much damage. Well, not to his face, obviously to his knee. Yeah, we don't really know the extent of what happened to his knee. I didn't see. I heard a few comments on it, but I didn't know if they were legit. Did he break anything?
Dana White said it in the post-fight press conference. He said he's got an ankle like a golf ball, or I think he said a golf ball, or maybe even a baseball, was his words. I think it was Dana White. But do you feel maybe after the last two losses? I mean, it's always been said the unpredictability is the issue with Tony Ferguson. So stick to the fundamentals. and that's your blueprint to just stop him dead. I mean, do you feel like that's what's happening, or do you feel like Tony Ferguson's maybe over the hill?
I actually think it's the fundamentals that he's struggling with, to be honest. I think he's got away with it before, where he's quite reckless, and then in them kind of reckless and exchanges, he manages to catch them in a submission, whether it be the Darce choke or even if a doctor stoppage where he does his elbows with the cuts and everything. But people know what he's going to do, Tony Ferguson. Although obviously he might be kind of wild and everything like that, they know kind of they picked up on his movements and everything like that. And I think the older that he's getting, I mean, the guy's almost 40 years of age, and it's like, you can't. I just don't think you can keep that up as the body gets older and everything like that. So you have to rely then on your fundamentals. And I think he lacks kind of some of them fundamentals that you could rely on. And I mean, the fact is that his last two fights, he's been dominated in what everyone thought was his strongest suit, which is the jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like if I Tony Ferguson, I'd say his strongest suit would be his jiu-jitsu. That's what we were kind of scared of when he was planning to fight Khabib. We were kind of like, how was Khabib going to deal with Ferguson on the ground? And in his last two fights, he's been easily dominated on the ground. So I think it's a case of, obviously, A, yeah, he is getting on a bit now, and then B, because he's getting on a bit, his body can't deal with them same kind of wild kind of performances that he used to do, and he's missing some of them basic fundamentals that other fighters they just have. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem you've got is he's now ranked 6th. So, I mean, if he was to be cutting anyway, which I don't suggest he ever would be, or that people are talking about it, you'd be cutting the ranked 6th fighter. But on a 3-fight losing streak, you look at, he's ranked 6th, but it's the top 7 really, because you've got Oliveira, then ranked first Poirier, then it's Gaethje, Dariush, Chandler, McGregor, and then Ferguson. I mean, really, I wouldn't even give him Dos Anjos, Hooker. I'd give someone like Felder or Islam Makhachev, someone like that to Tony Ferguson, and give him a look. These are ranked 9th and 10th. These are your way to push yourself back up. They're getting a fight against an upper ranked fighter. You're getting an easy fight because you fought 3 of the top fighters in a stacked division. You come out with 3 losses. Will give you the opportunity to redeem yourself and build it back up for one last run. And I think that one of those fights would be the ideal. And I think Islam for me, because I just don't know what's happening with Paul Felder. Or Dan Hooker maybe, because he come off the loss to Chandler.
Yeah. I think if you're a Tony Ferguson fan, you want him to do well, I think you'd give him Dan Hooker. And that's just purely because Dan Hooker's a striker. So I'll give, at least to give Tony Ferguson more kind of options in ways to win. I think if you give him that Islam guy, who's just an outstanding grappler, yeah, I think he handles Ferguson quite comfortably. I think he wrestles him for 3 rounds. I think he dominates that fight. To be quite honest, nobody wants to fight that Islam guy.
Well, that being said, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. It is the UFC. In the title, it is the Ultimate Fighting Champion. While you want to give him a lower ranked fighter to prove himself, if he's at 6th and he can't beat 10th, then the ranking system's not right. So you're giving him a lower ranked fighter. I know what you're saying, because personally I feel you're 100% right. But at the same time, if you're cherry picking out of the 4 people below him, then you're just making the rankings what you want. You know what I mean? You should say, well, look, you've got the 4 below you. We'll give you the toughest one we think out of the 4 below you. In my eyes, I mean, you've got Dos Anjos, Hooker, Felder, and Islam. I do feel like Islam's the most solid competitor out of all of them, and he's a good 4 rankings below. And the thing is, it's kill or be killed. It's business. You can't afford to give him. Well, we'll give him Dan Hooker because we feel like that's going to be I mean, it'll be a stylistically more interesting fight, but I'd be just as entertained watching him get manhandled.
So I think when we talk about the ranking system, though, I think it's kind of down to perception. There's a lot of people maybe that don't agree with the rankings. I don't really. I'll be quite honest. I'm one of them people that don't really pay attention to the rankings. I used to, but it's just kind of like you can make arguments of kind of the number 10 guy beating the number 2 guy, if that makes sense. It's just, I just think it depends on the actual fighter. Like that Islam guy, I think he's a good example. I think he beat a lot of the top 5 guys in the lightweight division. I just think he matches up with them perfectly. But I don't even know if that Islam guy's in the top 10. I don't know where he's at. Is he in the top 10?
10. That's what I'm saying.
So he's 10.
So for him, he'd be fighting against a ranked 6th fighter in Tony Ferguson. And he'd be in a position where he could show he's beaten someone who's just left the top 5. And Tony Ferguson would be in a position where, well, you're taking on someone ranked 4 places below you. But at the same time, you know, he is an up-and-comer, but you've got to blood those up-and-comers. If you can't fight who's ranked 10th, then you shouldn't be ranked 6th.
Yeah, I think it just depends on kind of the time wise for it as well. So that Islam, he actually does have a fight announced. People wasn't quite happy with it though, was they? Because they were like, he needs someone in the top, in that top 10. But they got a guy, is it Tiago something? It'll be on the internet somewhere, but he's got a fight lined up. Yeah, but this guy, he's ranked outside the top 10. And that's simply because there's no one really to fight him in the lightweight division. They're either all matched up or nobody wants to fight him. Daniel Cormier said he's got the same kind of situation as Usman. So you remember when Usman was going up the welterweight ranks, beating everyone, but nobody wants to fight him. So he was struggling to get them big spots. Obviously, now that he's the champ, you know, you can't avoid him now, how can you, if you want to be the champ? But
he's got what you want.
Islam's going through kind of the same stages now where he's struggling to get them big fights.
Yeah, I mean, what's the biggest name he's fought, though? And I mean, he's dominating who he's fought. So
I'd probably say, what's his name? Drew Dober. His last fight was against Drew Dober. I know Drew Dober. Like,
it's a double-edged sword, though. Do you know what I mean? He's in a position where he looks like he's going to do that, but he's yet to do it. So it's kind of like you sort of, you know, he's that good, but he's yet to do it with the top echelon, so you can't say for sure. You know, you could put him in with someone like that and he could lose his head a bit and try and stand or something and just get KO'd. He may try to wrestle with someone like Mike Chandler or someone who's a little tank and, you know, they may catch him with something. I always remember, was it Donald Cerrone, Edson Barboza fight? And I remember Cerrone just looked like he was getting destroyed and they managed to catch him with a rear naked choke. And I'm not sure what the rankings were at that time, but I just remember watching that fight and thinking, Cerrone never should have won that fight. He was just getting destroyed for like 2 minutes, then managed to get a rear naked choke. That could happen to Islam. He could go in there and manhandle someone and then just get caught with a choke or a punch or something, and then that could be the end of him. Because, you know, he's got to fight those fighters and they can't be scared to give him them.
It's not that. So with that Islam guy, he's only ever lost 1 fight. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. In the UFC, he's only ever lost 1 fight. And he got knocked out. I can't remember who knocked him out. But that was a few fights ago. And since then, mate, he's been on a tear. His last fight was a fight against Drew Dober, who, if you haven't heard of Drew Dober, mate, like, he's good. Seriously good fighter. And he submitted him, and it was with ease. Like, he showed how good he was then. The point that with the whole ranking system is he should be fighting guys in the top 10, but these guys either basically don't want to fight him, or the schedule doesn't work. Either they're matched up with another fight or they're holding out, and that's the situation that he's in, unfortunately enough. So I think we're saying, obviously, Tony Ferguson, that fight would make sense. But it's whether, number one, the UFC want to match them up with Tony Ferguson, whether they want to give him maybe Dan Hooker if the time, lines up. Because I think that's what a lot of these is. It's all about timing, really, isn't it? Who's free to fight? You know what I mean? But I think for me, I want to see Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker, mate. I think that would be a good fight, that, mate.
Yeah, it would. I still fancy him fighting that Makhachev.
Yeah.
I just don't see anyone else below him that I think he should fight, and everybody else above him is going to be fighting because they're in line. So I feel like he's in a bit of a no man's land. And to be honest with you, we're talking about his next fight. If he's done damage to that heel, it might be a long time before he fights. There could be a whole different shake-up and, sort of alignment of who's going to fight who next, and he could just be getting whoever. So it's a crazy division at the minute. So saying that, Edson Barboza, Shane Burgos, what a freaky stoppage that was. It was just so weird the way he got struck on the temple. Seemed to be all right, and then just. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So that was my that was the highlight of the night, in my opinion. I love watching Edson Barboza fight. It's just he's just the guy that he's always in there. Like, he's always got a chance. There's a guy. There was a doctor who I think he's a ringside doctor. So he's used to watching kind of MMA fights, boxing fights. And he gave a really good article on why that happened. I don't know if I'll be able to explain it as well as what he did, but it was almost a sense of when people get knocked out, it's kind of it's to protect the brain, isn't it, from kind of from the swelling and everything like that. It shuts them down and everything like that. But there's kind of like a pressure point. There's like a point where you reach that maximum of how much you can take. So what this doctor said was, when he got hit by the shot, he was just touching that kind of that pressure point. And apparently he said that when Shane Burgos went into his usual stance, and when he basically bopped the head like back and forth, that simple gesture of knocking the head sent him to that point, and all of a sudden, boom, shut down. And that's why it caused a delayed reaction. How mad is that? I read it and I was like, what? That's crazy.
There's a number of different ways to knock people out. When they go Bambi-legged and they're like sort of wobbling, that's when there's a downward force, and it puts pressure on the axis where the central nervous system goes. So it just sort of compresses and stops all the messages going down. That's why their legs go. When you're catching them on the chin, it's like a bundle of nerves that gets stretched and just shuts the lights out. It's like all different ones, but when you catch the temple, I guess
equilibrium as well.
The what?
The equilibrium.
The
as
equilibrium
well.
in the
always
air,
a fun one.
Yeah.
You see that's when you see them go all like.
David Price was quite famous when he got dropped. He got punched in the ear, and I think it popped his eardrum and took his equilibrium out, and then he was just gone. The boxer. But yeah, mate, it's crazy the different ways that you can actually stop someone with a knockout, and that's why you see the different types of them. I always love it when you see them Bambi-leg though, because it's just like, I always feel like they're still standing and sort of looking at you. But if you know that that's the reason that it's momentarily cut off the motion to their body, surely that's an inability to protect yourself, but they allow you to still get struck. And it's a bit of a grey area, that, for me.
Yeah, I think that's a bit, it's quite tricky, that one, because there's so many examples that if you were talking to the athletic commission, and obviously you were having that kind of argument, you can give so many examples of how guys have been kind of rocked, and they're obviously on like Bambi legs, they're like, aren't they, and everything like that. But then they've come back to obviously take them down or catch them. I mean, my favorite one of that was Czech Congo versus Pat Berry. Do you remember that? Remember Czech Congo and Pat Berry?
Oh,
Mate,
didn't he?
that is like one of the best, like, yeah.
It's
That
unbelievable.
was one of the best comebacks that I've ever seen. Just like, you can see Czech Congo again, just so like a zombie, just dazed and everything like that. And the next thing, he just catches him with an uppercut, and it's like, oh my God.
But
there's so many good examples on YouTube.
That is the thing, though. It's like a momentary lapse where they have this moment, and if you're not quick enough to capitalize on it, you could be running into a KO. And if you are quick enough, you're running into someone who can't defend themselves. And it is a grey area for me, because either someone's getting KO'd when they can't defend themselves, or, you know, they are able to defend themselves. So you either lose the entertainment of the fight or someone's safety. And, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. It's just the nature of the beast.
I think with that as well, I mean, I've heard people when they kind of call that, it's like mentally they're there. They're aware of their surroundings and what's going on, but their body's not doing what they want the body to do. And I just think, as a fighter, you know, how panicky must you be? You must be just absolutely panicking, thinking, fuck, like, this guy's coming at me, I'm wobbly. I want to defend, I want to get my hands up, I want to throw something, but my body's just not doing it. It's like a bad dream, isn't it? Where you're trying to run away from someone in a dream, and you're running so slow, aren't you? It's like that really bad dream. Scary.
Yeah. I've hit a lad in sparring before. I wasn't meaning to go as hard as I hit him. And he just...
Bully, mate.
Well...
You're a bully. That's what you are, mate. You're a gym bully.
No, I genuinely didn't. I think he was stepping in as I hit him. But the point I was making was he went glazed, and I was like saying to him, "You all right? You all right?" And he's like, grunting. And I wasn't sure if he was just like trying to be like, I'm grunting, I'm hard. And then when I spoke to him afterwards, I went, "What happened there?" I went, "You just went glazed. You sort of stepped in as I hit you." And he was just like, "I don't remember the whole round." And I was like, "You were glazed, but you were moving." You know, he was throwing back and stuff like that. But for him, he just had a complete blank of what had happened. And it's crazy to think, like, he wasn't Bambi-legged or nothing.
Yeah.
He just looked a bit glazed over, and you could see in his face, like, that there wasn't much going on. But he was still throwing punches. And he just said, "Nah, I was..." Another kid, Adam Pennington, said it when he fought Mark Hill. He said he was punched on his feet, and he said he's got a complete blank for like the last minute. He just said, didn't know what happened, and then he went on to win the fight. And it's insane that people are just functioning without knowing. It's like their subconscious is doing what they've drilled and drilled and drilled in training without the critical thinking happening at the frontal cortex. And it's scary to think that you might be in that position at some point.
Yeah. I think that's why kind of, I mean, the best fundamentals to have is your wrestling, really, isn't it? Your wrestling and your jiu-jitsu. I mean, because, you know, you watch these fighters that they're American fighters, and they've done wrestling all their life, through college and school and everything like that. And that really is their comfort zone. So when you see them get rocked and everything like that, their success rate of coming back from that is quite high, because their natural instinct is to just shoot for a double leg, shoot for a single leg, and just get the fight to the ground. It's quite a good bread and butter to have, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Unless you go box Jake Paul, like.
That he fought.
But that being said, we did call Edson Barboza, although our reasoning was Shane Burgos is really good, but we're Edson Barboza fanboys, so I can't really say we picked that very technically. But there was another pick that went right on.
No.
It was just 50.
We'll take it. Who was that? Neill. Who was that fight? What was that fight that we were like, we're going to pick him because we don't know who the other guy is? Do you remember that? What was that fight last week? We were just like...
Was it Munoz or something?
I'm going to choose him because I don't know. Oh my God. What? Jacare Souza? It was Jacare Souza versus that guy. Mate.
And he got his arm broke.
I know who he is now. Yeah. I know who he is now. I mean, fucking hell, what a comedy. Yeah, I forgot about that fight. But that was a first ever guy to submit Jacare Souza in MMA. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I feel like Jacare's career's not been going as well as it could have been 5 years ago. I just feel like he's sort of, he's a big name. He's a big name.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of fighters now who are fighting to get paydays because they are big names, but they're hitting their sort of late 30s, early 40s. And I feel like, you know, that's an indication of what can happen to you if you're in that position. I mean, it's a broken arm there.
Yeah.
He showed the picture. He's got like from there down to about there. If you can see all the way, he's got steel plating now, or slammed in. I do have to say though, someone put a meme on Facebook, and I hate going back to memes all the time, but it was a picture of a footballer who's being tapped, crying on the floor, and then a picture of Jacare Souza with a broken arm, tapping him on the side, saying, "Well done, that was a good win."
Yeah.
And it gives you an idea.
Just wasn't bothered. Wasn't bothered. It was like he's obviously been in that situation before. You know what I mean? So I think he knew what the pain was like. It told me that he's experienced this before. But yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of a big subject, I think, and it probably goes back to Tony Ferguson. You know, a fighter knowing when to call it quits and when not to. And I think for Jacare Souza, I think, obviously, don't know the guy, you know, but my kind of opinion is he's been so close to getting a title shot in the UFC. So many times where he's kind of been there and he's kind of fallen at the hurdle. And I think kind of it's a lot easier, isn't it, when you've finally reached what you want to reach and then you can retire. And a lot of fighters, unfortunately, don't get that. Like Alistair Overeem was a good example. Yeah, he's been the champ at organisations, but he always wanted to win the UFC belt. For him, it was almost kind of like as soon as he wins that belt, then he can just say, I'm done. I think there's only a select few guys like Michael Bisping. Yeah, what did you say? Sorry.
He left it too late. Alistair Overeem in his career. He had about 60 fights, K1. Then had about 60 fights, about 45 fights MMA before he even went in to the UFC. And people go, "Oh, he couldn't do it in the UFC. He doesn't have a jaw. He doesn't have." No, he's took more punches in his career than like the whole division, the heavyweight division in the UFC. He is probably one of the all-time greatest heavyweights that you will see. But unfortunately, he went into the UFC far too late for me. And he was also juiced up. And I think that, I mean, he went from being up there to there. And I don't care what you say. If you go in juiced up and then they catch you and then you have to go in not juiced up, that affects you mentally. Because you've been thinking, I'm up here, I'm invincible. And then you go in thinking, oh, they've caught me out and now I'm down here. So I think there was a lot of stuff going into Alistair Overeem's UFC career that really worked against him.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd have just stayed clean and gone in earlier, not in his late 30s where he felt that his testosterone had declined that much that he felt he needed to pick it back up, then I feel like, you know, he would have won that gold early on.
I think so. When Michael Bisping knocked out Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping was the champion, it's like if Jacare Souza was to get that fight against Bisping, I'll easily say Jacare Souza would have won that fight. I'll say that. And I just feel like it's just timings on who's the champ. If Jacare Souza fought Weidman when Weidman was champion, I generally would have give that fight to Jacare. Even at that time, I know they fought after that, but even at that time, I'd give it to Jacare. And I just think it's just timing of things. I mean, Jacare Souza, he just had bad luck of fighters pulling out, and he fought like Derek Brunson twice. He's fought Chris Camozzi twice. You know, these are fighters that these are fighters that he should have been fighting higher guys, but injuries have happened, so they've had to pull out. It's just timing of things, and if you can time it right, then you know it's just easier. Michael Chandler, I'm going to use Michael Chandler as a good example on timings. I mean, I know Charles Oliveira was like the Dana White privilege, which I love, to be fair. But Mike Chandler's just gone in. Perfect time, you know. Doesn't even have to fight. He just makes fight. He's the backup for the McGregor and Dustin Poirier fight. With a title shot in his second fight. You know what I mean? Like, and that's in the hardest weight class to get a title shot, the lightweight division. Did it in the second fight. Just timing.
Yeah, and it's a fair enough point, mate. I mean, it wasn't necessarily timing with Brock Lesnar, but after avenging his loss to Frank Mir, straight to heavyweight title shot. And I think the division at the time didn't really call for many other people to be getting it. So again, timing, it happens time and time again.
Yeah.
Throughout the history of the sort of title exchanges, you always get someone that you feel shouldn't have had it. But at the same time, life's shit, isn't it? So that being said, then we've got this weekend coming up, UFC Fight Night. Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt.
I can't wait for. I can't wait for Cody Garbrandt to be back. You know, like I'm not going to say I've been a big fan of his, by the way, because I'm watching The Ultimate Fighter with TJ Dillashaw, mate. I couldn't stand him. He's just everything that I hate as a person. Just angry, not in control of his emotions, cringy, embarrassing. And then I feel like since that fight, I feel like he's gone through them losses, and I do feel like he's kind of matured a bit. He's tried to kind of when you watch them fight the guy who knocked out in his last fight, Rafael Santos.
Assunção.
Yeah, Assunção. When he fought him, you could just tell he was obviously tempted into them wild exchanges, but you could tell him kind of the first time he dropped him, he kind of reset himself. He didn't rush in, he just reset himself. And he's gonna have to do that against Rob Font, mate. Like, Rob Font's a dangerous guy, lanky as well, big for the division. I'm hoping Cody Garbrandt gets it done though, you know. I'm hoping for like a Cody comeback, because I think he's got the skills to do it, you know.
Yeah, he's got 2 wins out of his last 5. That being said, 2 of them are Dillashaw, and you could argue a juiced up Dillashaw. But I know what you're saying about Dillashaw's personality. For me, just to put it in there, one of the most talented fighters. When you watched him take on Renan Barão, the first and second fight, I mean, no one expected him to do that. His footwork was something, where he was switching with them kicks. I was just a phenomenal performances, mate. And I think the Dominic Cruz fight for him was really close. But that being said, the Assunção fight was his last fight. The only other win in his last 5 was the 5 fights was Dominic Cruz, who's an agent. Dominic Cruz, he did win, you know, hands down, no questions asked. But it was an aging Dominic Cruz that was his last win before Assunção.
It was the way he dominated Dominic Cruz. I mean, he outclassed him. He outclassed him in the sense of Dominic Cruz, in my opinion, made him miss, and then just he made it look so effortlessly. And then obviously then he had the losses to TJ Dillashaw. He then lost to what is his name?
Munoz.
Sorry.
Munoz. Pedro Munoz, isn't it?
Got get him, but he dropped him and everything like that. So stupidly enough, he just got caught in this exchange. Yeah, Pedro Munoz, and then he got caught in this exchange, and it's just too wild. And like, you know, you go in, they're aggressive, and you chin up, your hands down, and it's a matter of time. So I think with Garbrandt, skills are clearly there. I think it's just his mindset. He needs to get back to that mindset of when he fought Dominic Cruz and he chilled and relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing with the Dominic Cruz fight,
it's lagged again.
It's all right, mate. The bit that you didn't, that lagged, right there. Yes, the main thing about Cruz and Garbrandt was he beat Dominic Cruz doing what Dominic Cruz does. That type of movements, erratic sort of lateral movements, and he was even doing little funny robot dances when he did it. He just did it emphatically, and it was undeniable who the winner was. It was just clean cut.
Yeah, he dominated.
Yeah. We'll turn to a bit of MMA news and then boxing news. You got Ngannou and Derrick Lewis is supposedly airtight now.
Yeah, I think that fight's been confirmed now. I know from the first fight it was kind of one of the most boringest fights ever, but I completely different second fight for me, and I feel Ngannou. I feel Ngannou with this one. I think in the first fight, I actually chose Derrick Lewis in the first fight, but then looking at how they both look, I think Francis Ngannou. I think he's just a better athlete.
Yeah, I don't ever want to bet against Ngannou ever, because he's just like your worst nightmare. If someone said to you, who would you rather creep into your bedroom at night with the intentions of murdering you, you'd say Derrick Lewis. But that being said, the new style that they've got him fighting with, keeping that distance, nice controlled kicking, that's what Derrick Lewis likes to fight against. He likes to get in there, mix it up, and throw these wild punches. And I feel like it could suit Derrick Lewis. But again, you never don't want to bet against Ngannou because he is just such a monster of a man.
It's weird, you know. Can I just say it's weird that the fact is when you're having this conversation, they both have the same kind of narrative, don't they? It just takes the one shot, and it generally is with that fight. It's just whoever lands first will win.
Who do you think is going to be quicker? I mean, you look at Derrick Lewis and you wouldn't think he's quick, but his movement is slick. It's just nice, like sort of head movements. But he's actually quite quick. I feel
he is quick. Yeah, he is quick. The only thing that lets Derrick Lewis down is his health. He's got a really bad back, and that's what fucked him up in the first fight with Ngannou. So Ngannou's perspective, Ngannou was quite intimidated, quite scared because just obviously lost against Stipe. I think he had a real weird mental block. Whereas Derrick Lewis, his back was just fucked. He just couldn't throw anything because his back was just gone. And you see it in fight when he fought Curtis Blades. He didn't look good in that fight. It wasn't a fight where he was winning. Like, you know, he didn't look good at all. But it just took him that perfectly timed punch, and then that was it. So I think with Derrick Lewis, it's just I don't really know what his game plan would be. Is he going to do the same thing, just wait until Ngannou comes in and tries to catch him? Because that's a bit of a dangerous game with Ngannou.
Well,
so I don't really know.
Now he's going to have to close him down. He's going to have to get in and mix it up with Ngannou, because Ngannou's going to just, like what he did with Stipe, he's going to pick him from distance. He's going to he was throwing some nice kicks. And if he doesn't break that distance and keep his chin down and just cover up as he's throwing, you know, so he doesn't get hit with the counter, he's not going to hit Ngannou. He's got to get in there and mix it up.
Yeah, that's so. To be fair, it really is just. I think that one's a bit of a picking fight, to be honest. Like, I can just imagine them, both of them. I wonder what the odds are on a double KO. Wonder what the odds are. Both land a punch at the same time and KO each other both out.
I don't know, but if you put any considerable amount of money on it, they'd not pay it out, thinking it was a fix.
I can imagine that fight though. Both of them just go with the overhand right. Over for both of them. I think
Ngannou's game plan is to just do what he did to Stipe. Come in, work the jab, use some of your kicks, because those kicks must kill when he's throwing them. If he turns his hip in, he's knocking you off your feet.
Tree trunks legs. Yeah,
work that big backhander in, and I think it sort of set it up rather than just going, just bombarding him. So, yeah, I do feel like if I was putting a bet on it, I'd bet on Ngannou. But I do feel like it's not 100%. It's Derrick Lewis has got a very real chance in there. And I think if he goes in and mixes it up, then it could really mess up the new sort of Ngannou that we see. Do you agree with that? Or
I do. To be fair, I feel like with Derrick Lewis, he doesn't have to worry about the wrestling. It's going to be a stand-up war. It's just a case of, in my opinion, who can land first, to be honest. So that one, that's going to be a good fight, that one. Don't see it going the distance.
It could be interesting, you know. With Derrick Lewis having a bad back, he's not picked up that much wrestling, pardon me, that he could go in and just wrestle him. But if he felt like he needed to, and he got him on the ground, with his size and strength, as long as he wouldn't have to wrestle him necessarily, just get him into a position where he's turtle and just start dropping from there, because he's a big boy, and you're scared to do stuff with someone like Ngannou, because if you move and try and you know, turn out or face him or something like that, and he just starts dropping, as soon as you're dropping your hand from your head, you're getting KO'd. I mean, by default, the fear of the power Ngannou's got, people are more reluctant to do what they'd naturally do. So you never know. Maybe that's a long
could
shot.
happen.
That's a long shot. Maybe.
I don't see it being a wrestling. I don't see either of them turning to the wrestling. To be honest, I think
I don't mean his natural motivation is to go in there and wrestle, but maybe if he could mixed up, if he starts mixing up, he'll just take his leg and take him down, because Derrick Lewis is just as big a threat.
Yeah, could happen.
And then the last bit of business for the day, mate, move to some boxing. So rumour has it, the Facebook posts are confirming it, the Tyson Fury, well, basically the arbitrators the Deontay Wilder's gone to have turned around and said by contract or contractually he's got to fight Tyson Fury. I think it's September, which means it's the Tyson Fury AJ fight, which Eddie Hearn's been going on about, the boxing promoter, that he's got it done, is now supposedly off. And Wilder will get the third fight. If you're not familiar with it, the first fight being a draw, Tyson Fury wiped the floor with Wilder up until the 9th or 10th round, and then he got dropped. They did like the 9-second count, and Tyson Fury rose from the dead. He was back up, pressed Wilder and took the draw, and then in the second fight just done him in about 6-7 rounds just by putting him on his back foot. Now, the big thing was, before the second fight, Tyson Fury said, I gave him too much respect in the first round. I just outboxed him and picked him off. Where really I just found that Wilder's just this big bully that comes towards you that can't fight on your back foot. So once he'd been knocked down, he pressed Wilder, put him on his back foot, and realised I should have just bullied him from the start. And that's what he did in the second fight. Now, Wilder come out with excuse after excuse after excuse of why he lost that fight. The suit that he wore to the ring was too heavy. The boxing gloves of Wilder looked like they were messed with. This, that, and the other. Someone tampered with his water. Everything you can possibly think of was an excuse. He got beat fair and square. His corner threw the towel in. End of. And he's now putting out videos of him doing more technical style boxing, where he's hitting pads, moving, head movement, which is all very nice, but it's real life. You look at Rocky 3. Oh, Rocky's going to fight Clubber Lang, who's got movement. I'm going to go to Apollo Creed's gym, learn how to box like a black man, do some skipping, some foot movement. Now, even though this guy's fought like that for the whole of his life, I'm going to go in and beat him. But Tyson Fury's fought with good movement, great footwork all his life. Deontay Wilder's just been this person with huge power running towards you. Do you think someone can change their ways in the space of a year to go then and beat someone who's who's boxed with that movement and footwork all of their life. I mean, what do you think?
So for me, and this is for like someone who doesn't follow boxing, so I actually find this really interesting, to be honest. So what I'm kind of not really understanding is this from the contract of the very first fight? Is this why they have to do this? Because this is what I'm failing to understand.
Yeah.
Why do they have to do this?
Well, you see, what tends to happen is you've got different boxing governing bodies in boxing. It's not like the UFC. So if you imagine it like Bellator, UFC, PFL and all that, it'd be like if they all fought each other. They all sign contracts. And when they're signing contracts, they're basically saying, well, we'll have this clause. If you win, I get the rematch, etc., etc., etc. And originally Wilder spat his dummy making excuses, was like, oh, I don't know if I want to fight him again. Everyone was saying he won the first one, even though I knocked him out or knocked him down. And has not really pushed the third fight. Now he's got this new training going on. He's putting out videos, whatnot. He now feels like he wants it. It's gone to an arbitrator and they've said, well, you have signed the contract for Tyson Fury to fight AJ, but technically Wilder wants to fight now. So contractually, you've got to fight Deontay Wilder. Otherwise, you either have to give up your belts or take a huge fine. And Wilder doesn't seem to be wanting to step aside to let them have their fight first. Because for Wilder, he's seen the Tyson Fury and AJ getting like 100 million each or whatever it is. And he now knows, well, there's that much money in the fight. I want it, whether he wins or not. So he knows that to cancel that fight, the money's going towards him. And he can then go and, you know, try and redeem himself. Whereas the Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight is the one everybody wants to see.
Yeah. I mean, so just, I mean, that fight, I mean, that fight I generally was looking forward to. I don't understand why. Well, I do understand. It's money. I get it. Just a bit of a slap in the face to the boxing fans, though, having it in Saudi Arabia and not having it at like Wembley Arena. And I get people's frustrations of that because, okay, yeah, forget fans and everything like that. For them two fighters, it's amazing. Loads of money, whatever. But for the fans, would you not, I don't know, like, would you not have that in Wembley? Because this is why I didn't really think it was fair, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think the majority of the reason is, with the amount of money in boxing nowadays, they're wanting like 100 million or whatever the price is each, or whatever it is they're getting. They want X amount. And once you paid fighters, let's say 200 million to cover all of that, and then you've got to pay for all the advertising, the marketing, you've got to pay for the arena to have it in, everything like that. What money's left over for all the companies afterwards? I mean, they make X amount off your advertising and stuff for the fight and the run-up with Sky and whoever it is who's promoting it. But they take a huge chunk now. And if you're going to throw it in Wembley, in a place where the COVID restrictions are sort of up in the air and stuff, you don't really want to be taking any chances. You want to make as much money as possible. Fans will travel. And when it's a heavyweight boxing fight like that, even if no one from England travels, you will fill that arena 10 times over because everybody watches heavyweight boxing the world over. And I know Tyson Fury's come out before and said he's not hugely bothered about fighting in the UK anymore. I don't know if that's to do with pressure of going in and fighting in front of home fans or what, or if he's had bad experience. But at the end of the day, his outlook now is, he said it himself, I'm not in it for the money, I'm not in it for this, I'm just a gladiator now, it's all legacy, I would want to go in and knock a motherfucker out. They're like basically his words, paraphrasing, so it might be accurate. But that being said, it'd be interesting to see if he puts his money where his mouth is and says, I'll give up the belts to fight AJ. I'll give up whatever fine to fight AJ. Pay me a bigger purse, I'll fight him, and I'll pay the fine out of that.
So I don't know if this is true, but I seen a comment maybe about 8 million. I don't know if that's right. But if it is something like 8 million, it's not really that much considering if they're going to get 100 million.
I'm saying 100 million just because it's a round up figure. I don't know what the exact amount is. I did think they were getting a lot more than 8 million.
Sorry, I meant the fine. I seen somewhere that that somebody would have to pay 8 million to Deontay Wilder. But wait, if you're Deontay Wilder, would you not be kind of like a bit embarrassed about this, thinking everyone hates me now because I've just ruined this fight that everyone was looking forward to, and it's like so much pressure because if I now lose this fight, if I now lose this opportunity, well, I'm fucked because I'm going to be hated because I've just ruined that fight, and it obviously could happen sooner, and I've just lost again, and now I'm on a 2-fight losing streak against the same guy. I don't know. I'm just a bit like.
The really annoying thing is if he beats Tyson Fury, then it's 1 win each and a draw. There'd be a push for a 4th fight. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that'd be a contractual obligation, but if you lose to someone, you want to fight them again to show that you've got the full win. I just feel like I still think that they're going to try and push it for Tyson Fury, AJ. I still think if there's a fine to be paid, I don't know what the complete sanctions are, if they can do anything and ban him on his license or something for not filling contractual obligations. I do think, though, I mean, let's look at it this way. From Deontay Wilder's point of view, if Tyson Fury goes and loses to AJ, then he's then got a loss and mightn't want to fight again. If Tyson beats AJ, he's already beaten Deontay Wilder, and unless he's got something in contract to say he's got to fight Wilder after that, he might just retire.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
If he beats AJ and he's already beat Deontay, he can retire with no one else out there to fight. There's no one else he needs to fight. He's beaten all the greats of this time. Klitschko, you name them. He's beat them all. So if he does fight AJ and win, Deontay Wilder could be right in saying, well, he's never going to fight me. If he loses to AJ, he may just retire because he doesn't want to lose a second. He doesn't want to more than that. If he loses to AJ, you can just say, well, I've lost to the youth that's upcoming in the game, although Tyson Fury's only about 31, 32. It's a crazy situation. I just feel like they should do everything in their power for Tyson Fury to fight Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, for me, like that's the fight that I'd be most interested in. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if I had the money, I'd be shooting over to Abu Dhabi or whatever, and I'd go watch it. But Tyson Fury, if you want
free tickets for one-way fighting.
Yeah.
There was I don't know if you watched this, but when Tyson Fury was on the Joe Rogan podcast, I'm sure he mentioned that they wanted, wasn't it a rematch with Klitschko, but they wanted it on it was like on some prince's private yacht in Saudi Arabia. How mad is that though? Imagine having like that big, like massive boxing fight on your yacht. It's just like, it's mad.
But they had Fight Island as well. They just got an island. Fight Island. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, the money they've got out there, I'm not sure. Certain areas, I've got a guy I know who's been out in Dubai who I speak to every now and then on the old Facebook, and he just said he was going there, going to move his family out, and he said when COVID hit, he said he works as like a planner for building and architecture. I don't know the exact thing, but he basically just said to me the whole infrastructure is dying on its feet, and they don't have the cash in some areas of business to meet the demand for the building works, and they're going to have like the World Cup coming up there and stuff like that. He just said it's not the state of affairs that is led to be believed in some cases.
Yeah.
I'm sure that only applies to certain areas of the stuff like that. But he said there's people just leaving cars in the street and stuff like that because they're just bailing and leaving because the whole COVID crisis has just led to them being unable to cope with some of the business demands out there. and he was actually out there for about 3 months, not so long ago, and he came back before they got put on the red list to the UK. And I just got in touch with him on Facebook. He was telling me all about it. So apologies anyone watching who knows that the details might be slightly different. I was reading Facebook messages, but yeah. So it's always a worry putting these fights on out there that, you know, things mightn't go through, because he said they were doing buildings that they were putting up and erecting, and they couldn't afford to pay for some of the materials, and they were like just sat on site waiting for materials to get delivered that weren't being paid for by some of the investors.
Yeah, I see what you mean. To be fair. Yeah.
So that being said, mate, pick a winner of AJ Fury. What do you think?
Fury easily, Tyson Fury, easily, mate. I just watching how they've both been. I'm just Tyson Fury for me, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think it's a walkover. I think Anthony Joshua is a fantastic boxer. I just don't think he'll deal with Tyson Fury. I watch a lot of what the real boxers, because I've boxed before, but I'm not a real boxer. I mean, you've got people like Bellew and that who are just adamant that it's going to be AJ. But then again, he's best mates with Eddie Hearn, who manages AJ and that. I just feel from what I've seen, it's Fury.
Yeah, I agree.
100%. But that being said, it's that time of the night where we've got to go to bed and cry ourselves to sleep on our sad, lonely pillows. But I don't know why I went there. But yeah, guys, we'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll have another treat for you and another guest this week. If you haven't watched it already, our Dave Faulkner of Ultimate Fighter Series 9, Bisping v Hendo, good friend of mine and hilarious podcast that's already uploaded onto the channel. So while you're watching that, after you've watched this, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you don't, I'll cry. And that's it. Have a good one, guys.
See you later.